What's up, Mecha fans, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are doing another discussion video, which I don't do a whole lot of on the channel, but I really want to do a lot more in the future because I always find them really fun to make. And today we are going to be talking about Titanfall 3, or an untitled Titanfall game. And unfortunately, within this circumstance, it is not very good news at all. But before we dive into all of that, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of Mecha anime content, also Mecha video game content as well. Then yeah, make sure you do subscribe for more of that in the future. Also, head on down to the comments section below. As when we talk about this news and talk about this update that we've got, I want to know your thoughts on it. I assume that everyone's going to have very negative thoughts and negative feelings towards this, which is understandable because, like I said, it is not good news. Without further ado, though, let us dive into it. So to give a little bit of background context on everything that's going on here, for many years now, there have been rumors floating around about a new Titanfall game coming out. The last one, Titanfall 2, came out back in 2016, so 9 years ago almost at this point. So it's been a hell of a long time, and these rumors always float around. It seems like every other year there's something that comes out saying that Respawn might have a new Titanfall game in development, or Respawn do have a new Titanfall game in development. There's always things going around, and there is some stuff that was kind of floating around earlier within April, and then there's also something that came out just the other day from Respawn where they essentially put out like a PR statement that was very much corporate speak. I mean, you can look at that PR statement and you kind of need someone to basically give you the basic overview of what it's saying, because it's a lot of saying nothing whilst saying a lot, if that makes sense. But in essence, they basically said that the company's dwindling in terms of how many devs they've got, and generally it's not in the best of places. So they've cancelled a couple of projects and they've really shifted their manpower focus onto upcoming Star Wars games and also Apex Legends, which I completely understand makes sense. That is the stuff that's been successful for them. So at the end of the day, you're limited on number of staff, then it makes sense to put all of your resources into the thing that is being successful. Of course, they didn't actually state what these cancelled games were. And I don't think we'll ever actually see an official statement from them saying that this is what was in development and this is what got cancelled. This kind of stuff within the gaming industry, or any industry really, it never happens. You never get official statements of this thing is cancelled unless it was already announced. And in the case of these were both unannounced games, or officially unannounced games. And from there, you basically had some insiders, leakers come out and say that one of these games was a brand new Titanfall that essentially would have been Titanfall 3 and was going to be an extraction shooter. And my take on these reports is definitely of a conflicting mindset. On the one hand, a cancellation of a new Titanfall game is bad because I want a Titanfall 3. Most Titanfall fans, or every Titanfall fan, wants one. I've wanted a Titanfall 3 basically since Titanfall 2 came out. Unfortunately, up to this point, it's been almost 9 years and we have not got one. So I'm sad that they cancelled a Titanfall game. But on the other side of that, the fact that they were going to make this an extraction shooter, I'm not necessarily saying that it would have straight up been bad, because we never saw it. We never saw exactly what it was going to be. But it's not a good idea. Stick with the Titanfall formula. Do a first-person shooter the same way that you've done all the other Titanfall games. Just take what works and fully expand on it, rather than trying to do something completely different to fit what is essentially a dying trend of extraction shooters. Just go with what the people wanted when it came to Titanfall and Titanfall 2, and just expand on that formula, and you will gain a fan base because of that. Titanfall has a pretty big fan base that has maintained with the game for almost 9 years, which is very rare, especially for a multiplayer shooter, which a lot of the times tend to die out after a year or two, unless they're competitive shooters, something that has more of a competitive scene. That tends to last for a little bit longer. But something like Titanfall 2 that is not getting massive support, the fact that it's still alive now is probably a good sign that people are interested, and there is, an active community there that can easily be built upon, because the foundations are there to make something even larger than it is. So like I said, very conflicting in terms of my ideas. I'm glad that they've gotten rid of doing an extraction shooter, but it was Titanfall 3, so not great. At the same time though, this is not at all surprising, because EA along the way have just continuously blundered the Titanfall franchise. Let's go back to 2014 when the original Titanfall game came out. Now I don't want to say that they blundered that completely, but it was only available on Xbox One. And we all know that in its initial life cycle, the Xbox One was not the most popular console ever. And Titanfall was not quite a launch title, but it was in that first year where, the Xbox One launched, was it maybe summer or late? I think it was towards like the holiday season of 2013, and then Titanfall launches in either March or April of 2014. It's within that first year, maybe even within the first 6 months. So it was one of the first big exclusives to come out on Xbox One. And I would say that it was a little bit of a system seller because I think everyone thought it looked cool at the time. But at the same time, you're putting that console exclusively on the one that was pretty objectively losing in terms of the console war. Like immediately, you're setting it on a path for failure. Now then it comes around to Titanfall 2, they're making multi-platform. Great idea. Of course, first, the original Titanfall was multiplayer only. Titanfall 2, they added a single player campaign and they still expanded on the multiplayer stuff. It looked like it was going to be exactly what everyone wanted. The only problem was EA stupidly decided to place it 1 week after the release of Battlefield 1. This was at a time where EA just could not get a break from constantly making terrible decisions. I mean, you look at how Ubisoft now is in the gaming industry, where almost everything they do is a bad decision. That is what EA was around that time, where just constantly controversies, bad, like bad practices in terms of gaming, and their reputation in the gaming community was dwindling completely. I think they're in a little bit of a better place now, but still not the greatest ever. And like I said, they put Titanfall 2 releasing a week after Battlefield 1. Now, which is the better game, which has stood the test of time more? Probably Titanfall 2. The problem still stands, though, is that Battlefield is generally a more well-known, more respected gaming franchise, and it's also made by EA. EA put two multiplayer shooters back to back. Which one is going to be the more successful one? Obviously the one that's more popular, Battlefield 1. You just set up Titanfall 2 for complete failure there, when it could have been a very successful game if you'd released it 6 months after, 6 months earlier, a year after, whatever it may be. You just don't release it a week after. Like, that just seems like a terrible, terrible business decision. But alas, that is what EA decided to do, and ultimately it was not a good decision. And we've seen that they have not made another Titanfall game since then, probably for the very reason of Titanfall 2, was not as successful as it should have been if they had released it at a different time. But like I said, it still maintained an audience up to this time. Like, I still see people talking about Titanfall 2, see people posting about Titanfall 2. It is a game that has stuck in the minds of people. Probably more so within the Mecha community. It's still a community that's actively trying to keep this game alive. And sadly, EA are not trying to do that. Respawn are also not trying to do that. And I don't completely blame Respawn because, at the end of the day, their funding is probably largely coming from EA, so they're the people that are going to have to make those big decisions, and at the end of the day, it's business. The things that are successful, it's a money-making industry. Of course, you're going to go the route of like, okay, what's making us money? We've got to stick with that kind of stuff, especially when you're lower on resources and you can't afford to like expend those to take a risk like Titanfall 3 essentially would be. Though I think that if they released it, it probably would be a lot more successful than maybe they're thinking, just purely because it's been over 9 years. So there's almost an element of nostalgia for the franchise where I think people do want it back. So at the end of the day, the cancellation of another Titanfall game is of course a really sad thing for the Titanfall community, but it's just another example of this franchise being completely screwed over by terrible business decisions. That about wraps up my thoughts on this whole Titanfall 3 situation. Before I get out there, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of Mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, like I said earlier, head on down to the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff that's going on here. Do you wish that we did get that rumoured extraction shooter Titanfall 3 game, or are you kind of glad that they took the direction of scrapping it completely? And also, if you'd like to see more Titanfall videos in the future, like a retrospective on Titanfall 2, then let me know. Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.